Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Tuesday morning edition of Sidelines. Got a stacked and packed show, a lot of great guests. Going to start off as one of the top bass fishermen in the country, Mark Rose from over in Wynne, Arkansas. On the other side of the ridge, we live in Memphis. I'm sitting here in parking right now at the Cherry Farm. A lot of people saw that when we sent out the alert about the show this morning. Got a lot of questions already stacked up for him. And very popular. Guys are saying, I just bought one of his rod and reels at Walmart. So a lot of questions. Really appreciate him being on here with us. Second segment, Vince Ferrara checks in from Knoxville, the sports animal, talking Tennessee VOLS and college football. And, of course, his Tampa Bay Rays did not stand up too well to the Atlanta Braves. Braves Nation, Cardinals Nation. That's most of our listening audience, but we'll be talking with him. Hour number 2, Allie Peak Wilbur, new guest, checks in from down in Florida. She has taken Gus Malzahn to task for trying to call UCF, one of the big four in Florida. Second there, Gus. What have you done lately? We'll talk with her, get her insight. And in the second hour, fourth segment, Rodney Orr, Tiger Insider, checks in from Tuscaloosa, talking about the latest news in Tuscaloosa with Alabama. Of course, there's always news. We are, 5 days away. We'll be going up Sunday afternoon to SEC Media Days in Nashville. Be broadcasting live all week. We're going to be giving you updates live all over social media with every coach. All 14 will be there. I'm sure representatives from Texas and Oklahoma will be there, but looking forward to it. All 14 schools covered. And this is football, all about football. But look, lots to talk about. We're here 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. Central, sidelines.live. Check us out on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also support our many, many sponsors. We are blessed to have great folks like Red River Ford, Toyota, Chad House, ECS House Industries over in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, right in the heart of the Delta. Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the square in Collierville, Tennessee. Rumble Boxing Gym, Gateway Tire and Service Centers. They go the distance for their customers and their communities. So, look, let's get rolling right now. Follow us on Twitter at sidelines_live. Some of y'all might even be fishing out on a lake or on a river somewhere. But, man, look at that trophy room. This is awesome. You may have the best background we've had. We had Coach Jackie Sherrill on here, Mark, not too long ago up in Cotter, Arkansas. While we had him on there, his son, he goes, hold on a second. His son landed about a 4.5-pound brown trout, which is good. But now I've got so many guys already asking me about bass fishing. It may be the most popular fishing on the planet. But first off, let me say thank you for taking time out of your Tuesday morning to join us. I met you over at Red River last week. Had a big crowd to hear you talk about fishing. And good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Good to be on the show, man. Yeah, it's fishing has come a long way in my 24 years since I've been doing this professionally. I've watched this sport really grow, and as you saw at Red River last week, we had a lot of youth there, and the youth movement in bass fishing is just unbelievable. It's good to see, high school fishing, college fishing.
Yeah.
It's cool to be a part of it.
It really is. And I that's the first thing. My wife and I were there at Red River getting my oil service there, and we were heading up to the Spring River, and we went trout fishing, 14 of us, 7 canoes, and, half men, half women. And, man, the women were as into the fishing as ever. We caught 119 rainbow trout, only kept 11 limits, the legal limit of 5 for everybody. But what they do in Arkansas, Mark, is off the charts. The Game and Fish Commission for putting fish in the rivers and the lakes and all. And it is, again, what you're doing, you're getting people outside. And I like that Ted Nugent bumper sticker. Take your kids hunting and fishing so you don't have to go hunting and fishing for your kids. I don't know. I think you and I are probably not that far apart in age. Are you from West Memphis?
I am from West Memphis.
All right. Michael Sag just texted me. He's a West Memphis guy, and he goes, do you know Jim Cherry? That's we're here at the Cherry Farm. Now, Jim's grew up in Marion, went to school in Memphis, but they farm over here in Cross County. But all these people, they buy your products. I didn't realize how many people knew who you were, and I was texting with several people. But talk about just what you do starting in Arkansas, getting the word out, getting more people involved in outdoor sports, hunting and fishing, but also you're all over the country with this fishing. I looked at you got 8 wins, 66 top 10 finishes, another 22 in the top 20. That's impressive beyond anything I know.
Yeah, I've been truly blessed at this sport, Rob, and the 24 years of doing it has given me a platform to do things like what you're talking about, bring awareness to the sport of fishing, speak at a lot of different functions. Outdoor ministry is a passion of mine. You don't really know that being as we just met, but that's something that I'm really passionate about. So just whether it's spreading the love of Christ through the outdoors,
Yep.
or kids and women, like you talked about, like you have your trout fishing trip. There's a lot of girls and women involved in the sport also. So I just, you're right. Arkansas does do a good job of just conservation and growing our lakes and making them healthier, where they're trophy bass lakes. Texas does a good job. Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, they're all really strong. So this sport is growing. It's cool to be a part of it, and there's lots of different facets of it that I'm headed out to. I fly to ICAST today, which is the largest show that we have in fishing, where all of the freshwater and saltwater lures and products and everything new coming out in fishing, where all the vendors will come in and the Midway USAs and all the e-commerce sites and the brick and mortar stores, Bass Pros and all, will come and see all the new products, and I'll be there for 2 days. So there's always something going on.
There really is. Mark, I'm getting questions from people right now saying, hey, I've got 3 kids and they're all under 6. They all want to go fishing. Where do you start when you say, I'm going to get my whole family. We want to go on we want to go up to Bull Shoals. We want to go up the North Fork of the White River, maybe even catch a walleye if we're lucky, but get somebody started in the process of fishing. Cause you don't want to try to do it all at once, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, no, and it's so easy to get started in fishing. Just it's simple, you can go to the retail store, pick up a simple combo rod and reel, just some simple bobbers, weights and hooks. Get a bucket of crickets, a cricket bucket. Go stop at a bait store and just go out there. Whether you rent a canoe or you hire a guide or just get on a dock somewhere. If you go to the White River chain, we got like Bull Shoals, Table Rock, North Fork. All of them are just great parks. You can go and you can camp for the weekend, and you can find a dock somewhere. There's always fishing piers on all these reservoirs, and man, just get out there and enjoy the sport of fishing. Once a kid watches a bobber go, I still to this day love watching bobber. Once they see them pull back on that fish and get, it's just a special bond that they'll have from forever, whether it's with whoever that took them fishing and with the fish and the great. So it hooks it, it hooked me early on, and you're right. My dad always says that every dime that he spent, on hunting and fishing with me just helped keep me out of trouble. They a rod and reel and all this tackle. I have women tell me all the time, man, this is so expensive. I said, well, it's a whole lot cheaper than rehab.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned about your outdoor ministry, and we always like to say when we're over here in Arkansas or Mississippi, in a duck blind or in a pit, when you watch the sunrise on the Grand Prairie, and I'm looking out here at Crowley's Ridge right now, or Crowley's Ridge, if you don't believe in God, go back to sleep and try again, because it is unbelievable what we've got out here. Our outdoor resources, the hunting and the fishing opportunities. And I've never had someone that I've taken hunting, Mark, that didn't feel that same way. Like, wow, this is beyond cool to watch the sun come up or to watch a sunset. Now, kind of my best duck hunting is usually by 9:30 or 10. If it ain't happening, it probably ain't happening. You need to move to another place and then let the ducks rest in the afternoon. But you know what you have a lot of, and I've read about it a lot out west, is the blast and cast. You go out there and you duck hunt in the morning and you fish after that. But I want to hear about your outdoor ministry, because after the tornado hit March 31st in Wynn, we have the best listening and viewing audience in the country. They sent us a lot of money, and our members of our cherry farm, we went over to Wynn and helped whatever way we could, and we'll continue to do it. But Michael Jordan and Dave Baker went up. They bought all the bread they could find at Walmart and took it to the Cowboy Church up on Crowley's Ridge. But I was really, really impressed with the people of Wynn. But I want to hear about your outdoor ministry.
Yeah. And you mentioned that. I've never seen so many people. It's amazing how when a tragedy or a natural disaster or whatever comes about, that brothers and sisters just come together. And we saw we saw it on anytime anything impacts our family or our community like it did. And you talk about brotherly love that the Bible talks about, man. It was evident when I was at an event and I came home to Wynn, and I just rode uptown to see what I could do. I just walked the streets because, man, the Red Cross, Samaritan's Purse, all these disaster reliefs, everybody was there. And I was just, kind of getting in the way. So I just started, walking around praying with people and things like that. But yeah, it's, man, when I chose to do my career, I graduated. I played baseball at Arkansas State, and I graduated there. Me and my wife both did. And I had a family, wanted to start working, and I got involved with the Boy Scouts of America, the national office, the Chickasaw Council in Memphis, and I was the executive over here. Well, I wanted to. My passion for tournament fishing was growing, and whatever I did, I had to be able to be a disciple, to be able to share the love of Christ with people. It was important to me. And so fishing, it fulfilled my competitive edge that I still had from baseball. I was passionate about the outdoors. That came from my granddad, who was a commercial fisherman, right on down to his 4 boys, one being my dad. And so the outdoors was instilled in me. And but more importantly than that, the love of Christ. Once I got saved and saw what Jesus, did for me, and understood how he paid my sin debt so I could live a free life and have a life in eternity, man, I wanted to share that whatever I did. So fishing was the way that I could use my platform and my success to be able to speak at men's ministry functions, wild game dinner, beast feast, fish fries at churches, and just kind of talk a little bit about fishing, share fishing tips with sportsmen and women, and then share the love of Christ with them. Just let them know how much God loves them, that he sent his son to die for them and pay their sin debt. And we don't have to worry, man. We can be, and like you said, we can enjoy. I hunted before I knew Christ and fished, and I've hunted after and fished after. And it's so much more enjoyable seeing those sunrises that you're talking about, and knowing that didn't just happen with a poof,
Yeah.
It was created by our creator.
Yeah. I agree with you. And Jay Evers is a good friend of mine. I went to college with at Auburn, has a big outdoor fishing, hunting fanatic. It goes to British Columbia and everywhere in between, lives in Birmingham. They got a company. You need to try some of their Miss Rubin's rubs on the fish and the beef and the chicken and wild game. But I'm one of these people, like the duck commander says, if it ever ran, flew, swam, or crawled, I like to eat it. So I'm a big fan of that. Let's talk about the growth in fishing in this country. And also, I always ask people about this. I know Japan, it's really popular, bass fishing over there around the world. But here in America, you talk about conservation. Without the hook and bullet crowd is what I call it. All of us that hunt and fish that buy these licenses, there's no environmental movement. Even more important, though, is you educating people, okay, about don't keep everything that you catch, put back way more than you take.
Yeah. I think hunters and fishermen, Rob, are some of the best stewards of the land than anyone, really. When we go hunting, if we have a can of vine and weenies, we won't put them in the boat and not put them out there in the outdoors. And we're gonna, if we in the outdoors messed up, whether it be a loon that's got a fishing hook stuck in it, or has, if something is being, eaten or whatever, we're going to try to save it. And we're going to, if something, if anything is out of place in the outdoors, a hunter and a fisherman who cares about conservation and the outdoors is going to try to help it. If we see a deer, we're not just out there trying to maul every deer in the world. If we see a baby deer in stress or in need, every sportsman that I know is going to help that deer. And that goes for, that's just a small example of anything. I've seen so many things on lakes that, whether it be trash or some critter, that needed my help, and I helped it. So yeah. And Major League Fishing, the sport that I'm in, the league that I'm involved in, we actually catch, weigh, and release right there on the spot. We have a boat official and a camera guy in the boat. If I catch a fish, every fish I catch, I'll weigh it right there on a scale, and I'll release that fish back. We just left Lake Cayuga and St. Clair and a lot of those up in north in the Great Lakes, and a lot of those fish are spawning, and that is a crucial time. And I'm not putting that fish in my live well, carrying it around all day, and then releasing it 20 miles from where I caught it. Mm-hmm. Actually letting that male bass or that female bass go back and complete that reproduction process right there. So conservation is big, and there's no better conservationist out there than hunters and fishermen. We're always going to want to leave the outdoors better than where we found it.
Yeah, that's the old Aldo Leopold model. I'm really involved with Delta Waterfowl, big duck hunting organization. We got it down here in Memphis in August of 2001, and it was always put back way more than you take. And tell you the great example, my boys, we'd be heading out to the duck blinds and early in the morning at 5:30, 5:45 on the four-wheeler, and they'd be loaded up with their guns and shells, look like they're going to fight, and they'd see a bunny rabbit. Look at the bunny. Everybody would stop and go out of their way. And I'm with you. Everybody I know that hunts and fishes, you better have respect of the game and get back. I'm going to ask you this now. When we trout fish, which we love to do, and I'll be up there again on the Spring River soon, you take the forceps. We always grab the hook and just shake the trout, and it gets off, because if you put your hands on them, you'll notice the ones that you keep, they get kind of spotted and whatever like that. But what is the best way to handle fish that you're a lot smarter than I am? Bass, brim, crappie, muskie, walleye, whatever, for putting them back, because you don't probably keep many of the fish that you catch.
No, 100% of that. Well, now I've used, this is my bass boat here where you guys, but I've got a Sea Art meat boat out there that I do catch crappie, and I ain't scared to put them in some grease and eat them.
Yeah.
But most of the fish that I catch competitively, it's 100% catch and release. All of our tournaments are. And like I said, Matt, that I was just telling, 100% of those fish that we catch are fine. Right back in the water. Now, handling, we actually have a penalty, Rob, in Major League Fishing, to where if that fish hits the floor of my boat and bounces around, I get a 2-minute penalty. So what they're trying to do is help us not to boat flip fish, and let them bounce around on the carpet and everything. The best thing that you can do is actually lip the bass and not let it touch your clothes. They have a slime coat on them. and that's a protective coat that kind of just helps them slither through stuff and protects their fins and stuff like that. And I won't go into too much science, mainly because I don't know it, but I do know that they have a slime coat on them that helps protect them. And it's not good to put a fish up here and handling it, because this cotton t-shirt is going to rub off that slime coat of the fish and whatever outer garment you have. So it's best that you just lip them. And I see PETA and activists all the time have billboards at a lot of our tournaments, and they'll have a fish hook in a dog and say, "What's the difference?" There's a big difference. I've talked to a lot of biologists that say that fish do not feel that in the tough. It's kind of like a callus on your hand or whatever. They don't feel that hook in their in the mouth. Like, they don't have the same feelings that we would, or a dog would, with a fish hook in his mouth. So handling their mouth, God's given them a special numbness, so to speak, and just grip them as tight as you can, get that hook out, and put them right back in the water, and try not to affect that slime coat.
Yeah, I mean, we keep, look, I go fishing. I love to eat them. I've got lots of rainbow trout in the freezer. We got a lot of bass, and we got 2 members of our club, Mark, from Lake Charles, Louisiana, and those boys can cook. You call it fish stew, they call it couvillon. The Cajuns got a fancy name for blank on a stick. They can do it. But I'm with you about the people that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean there. I thought. But there's nothing wrong with eating fish. The man that created fish ate fish. So there's, God to us for a reason, and there's nothing wrong with eating. Sorry about that. I didn't mean
No. I'm with you. I see these people, they're all worried about catch and release, and I get it. But, it's like when we duck hunt, 4 mallards, only 2 of which can be hens. You want to get all greenheads if you can. A lot of people don't think it's a duck if it doesn't have a green head and a yellow bill. I've been to places where the hunting's that good, but it's not always like that. But most people, like with duck hunting, leave the hens alone, let them go and breed up on the prairie pothole region, send more ducks down this way. But I'm with you. People that are irresponsible give us, as hunting and fishing people, they give us problems. And I'm totally with you. Here's a question from a viewer. Said, ask Mark what effect the Asian carp have had on fishing the Mississippi River and the numerous oxbows and river runs along the Mississippi River. Because I see them when I'm practicing canoe racing in Wolf River Harbor, jumping over the bow of the boat. They're everywhere.
Yeah, the simple answer to that question would be a big one. It has affected them big time. However, having said that, things are coming back. It's getting better, I think, in my opinion. And again, I'm no biologist, but I think that the fish have learned to just inhabit with them. They've learned to adapt with them. What happens with an Asian carp? They don't eat the shad, and they don't, stuff like that. It's not like they're robbing a lot of the food away. They're robbing space away. They are rampant spawn. They will take over, and we've seen them take over the entire Mississippi River, chain, basically. From now, they're not in places like La Crosse and Red Wing and all those upper pools up there that have lock and dam systems and that are great fishing in the river. But they have really affected it down here, down south of the Mississippi River. And they've getting in other places like the Tennessee River. It took a major toll on Kentucky Lake. The recreational business around Kentucky Lake just plummeted, but it is coming back now, I'm hearing. So used to, when a few years after the carp got into, say, Tunica cutoff, it used to just be a great place to go and catch 4 and 5 pound bass, bluegill, crappie. We all enjoyed recreation at Tunica cutoff. And then it just got to where you couldn't hardly catch a bass over 12 inches, and not many of them. And now I fished a tournament there a couple years ago, and I hadn't been there in years, and caught 17 pounds, and I think 21 won it. So it's coming back. Kentucky Lake is coming back. But what it did was just took the mass from there's only so many fish that you can put in a 5-gallon bucket. And it's the same way on the Mississippi and Tennessee rivers with the carp.
Yeah. Got another question from an old real foot boy up in Dyer County, Dyersburg. Says eating bass is considered to be controversial by some people. They say it's a sport fish and shouldn't be eaten. People get real kind of funny about it. But I'm going to tell you, we had bass. We cooked them in a big old cast iron skillet over here at the farm. Tanner Smith did this and made that Cuvion. And I mean, I love them. I don't eat bass as much as I do, say, rainbow trout or crappie. And then my favorite freshwater fish, other than, say, rainbow trout, would be a walleye. I've only eaten those when I pheasant hunt up in South Dakota. That's a good fish. But you just explained it. And let me give you credit for something. You say you're not a biologist, but you probably got more hours in the field than a lot of people, maybe not PhDs, but you speak with a hell of a lot of authority. So give yourself credit, because my knowledge of hunting and fishing is I find the best people that do it, and I talk to them. And we got to get you back on the show, because there's a ton of questions. We don't have time to get to all of them, but if you could close out by letting people know, because I told you I wouldn't keep you that long, and we've got another guest, Vince Ferrara, coming up, but want to get you back on. But give a message that you could say to people out there that they're looking for something, a good hobby, like you say, and there's nothing better than being outdoors. But again, get them started, how they can follow you and your gear and what you endorse and that you care about.
Yeah, let me start out by telling the guys.
That was a lot.
Whoever about bass. There's nothing wrong with eating a bass. I've got a buddy down the street that has a lake that's way overpopulated. I eat some bass out of there. If you got a lake that struggles and the population is bad, let some go. Same way with any wildlife. If it's overpopulated, certainly eat them, and there's nothing wrong with eating a few bass. It's God's way of the population, taking care of the population. Man, I would tell people in getting started in fishing is just enjoy it while, getting hooked on them while they're young, buying that combo rod and reel like I'm talking about. Go to Midway USA, purchase a little combo online, get it, and go out and then just enjoy the outdoors. There's nothing better than spending time and fellowshipping with God, friends, and family than being in the outdoors, enjoying an outdoor sport, and fishing is an awful good one.
Yeah. And I just watched the way people responded to you and Hunter over there at Red River. I mean, especially the kids. I've got 2 boys, 2 girls, and they actually will tell me, thanks for getting us into this outdoor life as kids. And I think probably the best thing you can do is teach someone to tie their own fish hooks, especially trout fishing, because that's a real PETA, if you know what I'm talking about, trying to constantly go back in there and do it. But man, I love your message, your ministry, and what you stand for, and want to get you back on here again in a couple of weeks if you can do it. I want to get more. Our audience loves college sports. They love sports, and they love hunting and fishing probably more than anything than their families.
Yeah. Well, I'll be glad to be on anytime, Rob. I enjoy the great outdoors. It's been awful good to me and my family. I respect it. God created it. God created all the critters. He created them for us to control and eat, and for food and all that good stuff. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing wrong with enjoying it as a sport either. Because it really takes the place of a lot of bad decisions that we make in life, and it's an awful good decision to make, to just have a good time, have a lot of peace, spend some time with our Creator, and just enjoy a great, good old down home, all-American sport.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine said he spent more time in the duck blind with his daughters than he had at any time in high school before they got into duck hunting. And that says it all. Mark Rose, you are always welcome on this show. I mean, next time we can do it, Red River Ford Toyota and Win. I'll be glad to do it over there. That's where I met you, because I got to go there tomorrow. But thanks so much, and God bless you.
God bless y'all. Take care and good fishing, folks.
All right. Thank you so much. Mark Rose, man, love having a fisherman on here that understands and gets it and understands how important it is getting your family involved and taking them outdoors, because look, there are a lot of people that sit around on the rear end all the time, watch TV and get sucked into the brain drain. Just look, get it. And it doesn't take a whole hell of a lot of money to go fishing. I know you can go to any store like a Walmart, whatever. That's MJ just said I bought a rod and reel that he endorsed. And again, on the bass fishing, I like them. And when I go fishing, I love to catch as many as I can, but I'm going to put back. And again, it's all, I guess, like he said, it depends on the individual lake. The people that manage that lake are going to tell you what they want you to take out and what they want you to put back. So don't forget to do that. Another rock star here, Vince Ferrara, was down in Tampa last week. Well, St. Pete is where the Rays play, because I was in Atlanta. And I tell you what, you get a big dose of the Braves from the Braves fans. But those are the two best teams, the Braves fans think, in baseball, Atlanta and Tampa. And I thought that was a cool discussion, a lot of fun. And you said the Rays need to move where their fans are. Of course, we had Franz Beard on here yesterday, Vince, talking about Polk County right there, next to Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, 750,000 people. There's just a lot of people in Florida. And from a listener, hey, man, we need to be doing a hunting and fishing report every week, and that's what we're going to be doing. We had Hunter Bagram on Friday. We'll be doing it again later this week. We're going to get into some trout fishing with the best trout fisherman I know. A lot of you probably know who he is. Ain't nothing like him. We'll talk about it. But Vince, we are less than a week away from the start of SEC Media Days. Still summertime, because as long as it's hot as hell outside and you get soaking wet if you walk outside because of the humidity, it's summertime. But we are, 54 days, 53 days away from the start of college football season. What are you going to be looking for to hear from Josh Heupel at SEC Media Days in Nashville starting Monday?
Yeah, I really take it as next steps, next stages in football. It helps it go by faster, and look, it's going to fly by anyway. But the media days is such a big hurdle in getting to it, and then after that, once you're done with it, first of all, you learn so much from around the league during it, so that's a positive. If you're paying attention, if you're trying, and even though for a lot of people it goes in one ear and out the other, but if you're trying, you can learn about a lot of those guys, the players, the makeup of the teams, and things like that. And then after that, practice starts within 2 weeks for pretty much everybody in the SEC and around college football. So it's a fast downhill slope. So I really look forward to that. And then once we get into camp, man, it's an everyday thing, and it's a month of preseason practices. But when you go to the practices, when you do all the avails, and Tennessee makes a lot of people, coaches and players available, that month will fly by. What's that?
Sorry about that. I thought I had the mute button on. I was saying about a commercial break coming up in a second. But
no, that's all right.
I'm with you about media days. I love them.
Yeah, so you can, if you look at the next thing on the table, whether it's media day, start of practice, start of the season, you can get to that goal of the college football season being a reality pretty fast. But to answer your question, Rob, I think there's nothing controversial really that's out there in regards to Tennessee. So knock on wood, no one wants any last minute news, right, Jimbo Fisher?
Yeah.
So I think they're in good shape, definitely with the guys that are going there. Those guys are all squeaky clean and Joe Milton, Amari Thomas, and Jacob Warren. I think it's an excellent group. All those guys really good in talking to the media. Yeah, Jacob Warren, you could make a case for Brew McCoy, wide receiver, the senior transfer from USC, or Cooper Mays is kind of who I thought they might take. He is starting center and one of your leaders, and a guy that's gotten a lot more comfortable in front of the media. But my guess is Jacob Warren said, "Hey, I'll go. I'd love to represent Tennessee," and maybe it was more important to him. And all those guys were Tennessee would be totally fine with. And I'm sure there's others, but it's a really good group. And the biggest thing that I think Josh Heupel is going to get asked about is Joe Milton. Milton's going to be among the more talked about players there. There's 5 quarterbacks, but he'll be among the most talked about quarterbacks there. And it may be from people asking about him before he ever talks versus when he talks. Because as you know, Rob, some media leave before that final day, and they're just like, "Oh, I'll just have to miss out on those 3 teams." So he won't have the level of media on Thursday that some of the others will in the middle of the week.
Hey, hold that thought. I want to talk about that because I think you got to stay for all 14 teams if you want to learn everything. Vince Ferrara is on with us from the Sports Animal in Knoxville up in Big Orange Country. We'll be right back with a lot more on Tuesday's edition of Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
You know, Vince, you're talking about the last day of media days, SEC media days, not as many people there. Doesn't Paul Feinbaum do something for the last correspondent who's there at SEC media days? It's the last. You won that? There you go.
No, I've been in contention before with still lingering around trying to do work before we hit the road back to Knoxville. So I've been in that room during the updates, but thankfully I have not won whatever title has been there. But I remember getting, a lot of people either texting me or, tweeting at me that, hey, you're getting some coverage on the Paul Feinbaum show. It's my only appearance, I think, on the Paul Feinbaum show. To this point, but not something you're hoping for, and we'll try to avoid that again this year.
Yeah, let me say something real quick. The Crazy Donkey, if you love great Mexican food, great food truck, and you are anywhere near Helena, Arkansas, on Oakland Avenue where the old McDonald's used to be, the Crazy Donkey, it's out of Palestine, right off I-40 between Forest City and Memphis. You cannot, or actually Forest City and Brinkley. The Crazy Donkey has incredible Mexican food, great food truck. They've got the donkey burrito, and they've got tacos, the Casa Barilla. Absolutely incredible. Check them out. And also Clay's Smoked Tuna. If you've never had smoked tuna, smoked chicken salad, the smoked buffalo chicken dip like this at Summer and Parkway, right by the Memphis Zoo. Two of my favorite go-to places when I'm on the run. Vince, talking about Joe Milton. Yesterday, Friends Beer, GatorBaitMedia.com. I didn't realize, I thought he was from the Muck, which is, Pahokee. Lake Okeechobee. You're from Florida. The land of the giant mosquito, panther, 6-foot rattlesnakes, alligators, pestilence, famine, locust plague. It's a tough place to live. But he spent the 2 years in high school in Orlando. We went to Michigan, was a starter for about 7 games, lost the job, came to Tennessee, was a starter, got hurt. Hendon Hooker took over from there. Here's an interesting stat. Mark Ham up in Knoxville was on with us yesterday, our friend, and said that of the 796 passes that have been thrown since Josh Heupel's been the coach at Tennessee, only 6 of them have been intercepted. So what is it that Heupel does, or his quarterback coach? Who is the real brain trust behind making this offense at Tennessee click like it does? Because it gets better and better and better as the season goes on, and they can run the ball when they need to. That's a big difference versus an empty set backfield or something, isn't it?
It is, and that stat is all of the quarterbacks, the total passes that have been thrown by Tennessee quarterbacks. And Joe Milton has not turned the ball over wearing the orange and white at the University of Tennessee. And that, I mean, he hasn't been the guy start to finish in a game, but it's pretty impressive that he hasn't. I mean, went up against pretty good competition in Clemson in the Orange Bowl, started that Vanderbilt game, which obviously they didn't need to rely on the pass much in that one. But he has not. Well, I don't want to say turn the ball over. He hasn't thrown an interception. He did when he got hurt in that Pitt game his first year. He fumbled, and that was a turnover. But he protects the football, and then Hooker protects the football, or has protected the football. It's decision making. It's quick decisions for those guys, and I think part of that helps them make a quick decision is they scheme ways to get guys open. So you're not putting the ball in harm's way as much. Now, that also was a misconception of the whole draft process about Tennessee, that Hendon Hooker just has half-field reads. No, he doesn't. There's plenty of analysts. I had Matt Sims, a former Tennessee quarterback, on. He broke down 30 minutes with Phil Sims of Tennessee tape looking at Hendon Hooker, and they showed examples where he's looking full field, he's going through his progressions, or making tight window throws in the middle of the field. So a lot of that is just analysts looking at select plays and making big declarations off of that. But the bottom line is, and analysts that break down tape will tell you, they find ways to get guys open. So I think that limits you from turning the ball over with interceptions, and also taking the right chances. Joey Halsley, who's the new OC, taking over for Alex Golish, who's now in my alma mater as head football coach, he says, let it rip. I mean, he's talked about it emphasizing that to Hendon Hooker. And then also fun, too. Believe it or not, fun. Joey Halsley, his biggest thing that he harped on with Hendon Hooker going into last year was he wanted Hendon Hooker to play football like he did, like he played basketball. Loose and fun and not overthinking it. And that was a big part of it. And you know who else helped Hendon Hooker with having fun? It was Joe Milton. Because Joe Milton has been loose and energetic. And I think Joe Milton was a really good really good influence on Hendon Hooker, as Hendon Hooker in different ways was a good influence on Joe Milton. And I think you're going to see, you saw the payoffs of it, even though he didn't get a lot of credit for it last year in Hendon Hooker's play, and being more loose and just letting his talents play out, versus this year, where I think you're going to see more of the accuracy, the decision making, the cerebral play of Hendon Hooker. You're going to see that incorporated with that massive arm of Joe Milton. So I think it's understanding his guys that is part of what the beauty of Josh Heupel. And look, those guys have to have a want to as well, in not putting the ball in harm's way, or knowing when to cut it loose and making those tight window throws between defenders or over the right by the ear, zooming a throw by the ear hole of a linebacker or DB's helmet to make sure you get a throw in anticipation. But you can't do that every time, especially in the SEC. So those would be a few reasons why they don't turn the ball over. And then also one other quick thing is they're not this run and shoot 80% throwing team that people think they are, like Mississippi State at times has been. They're a pretty balanced team, and there's some games where they run the ball more, and that helps you once you get into the action game and where you can get more open receivers, because now you're keeping some balance and keeping teams from cheating in on you too much.
Yeah, and you look at Joe Milton's arm strength. I mean, another Florida quarterback that left the state. He's got a cannon for an arm, and everybody's talking. Mark brought this up yesterday at the Manning passing camp out at McNeese State, Louisiana, and he threw like an 80-yard touchdown pass, and they said that Eli and Peyton and all the Mannings were kind of like, wow, that's he has a cannon for an arm. Has he gotten better on the short and intermediate throws? And then also talk about the running back room, because you can be the greatest passing quarterback in the world, can't run the ball in the SEC when you need to effectively. You're looking at 7-5 or 8-4 at best.
Yeah, and just real quick on his throw at the Manning Passing Academy, Rob, it was more than just that. One reporter said 83 yards. Basically what it was right hash, roll out, opposite field, back pylon of the end zone in the air and caught. Yeah. So really that's a longer distance than 83, 85 yards, because you got 75 in field and then 10 in the end zone. Yeah. So it was incredible. And then he did a backflip somersault after that to celebrate, to show off his athleticism at 6'6", 240 pounds. Just incredible. But yes, he has gotten better at the short to intermediate throws. We were talking about that on the show yesterday, and that is one of the bigger questions for Joe Milton, because I think they have a group of receivers that can give them the element of run after catch and some of those slant patterns. Squirrel White, who was dynamic last year as a freshman, really flashed and had a really nice bowl game as well. I mean, he's a guy as fast as there is in the SEC. If you can get him on the run and you're not zooming balls off of his hands, deflecting into the middle of the field and defenders, or you're having him or anyone else on a crossing pattern have to sit down on a route as opposed to staying in stride and giving them a chance to run away from defenders with the run after catch. They've got guys that can do that. A couple of their redshirt freshman receivers from last year that couldn't crack into the lineup, and Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod, those are 6'3" receivers or track guys in high school. So they can run. And then they have Dante Thornton as well from Oregon, the transfer in, Nathan Laycock, the true freshman. So they're not a deep group of wide receivers. They have 8 right now, but they really normally just play 3, maybe 3 or 4. So as long as they stay healthy, they'll be fine. And there's a lot of competition for playing time there. But yeah, Milton's accuracy is going to make those guys better. The other thing is, will the improved accuracy on the deep ball throws, which was his undoing when he initially won the job, he was better at that in the Vanderbilt game last year when he took over for Hooker, and in the Orange Bowl. Will that continue when you get into higher level SEC play? To be determined, but when we've seen him in practice, when we've seen him in those games, I think he has made strides in those areas, and I would expect similar results this year as well with all of those throws, deep ball and short to intermediate.
Yeah, we're going to be talking in a minute with Allie Peak Wilbur, who covers Florida and football in the South, and she's got Gator blood in her, Vince. I mean, her husband played for Florida, and her dad played for Florida, grandfather played for Florida, brother played for Florida. That's the game. You think about how big Tennessee, Florida is as a rivalry, and then you've got Georgia going for the three-peat this season. Let's talk about Georgia's going to be picked by everybody. I mean, but everybody can't be right at the same time, not very often. Those are the famous words of the head of technical market analysis at A.G. Edwards for years, Al Goldman. who was one of the smartest stock men I ever knew. It's hard for everybody to be right together, but Georgia's pretty good. Is it going to be Tennessee? Is it going to be Florida? Is it going to be South Carolina? Kentucky with, O'Leary coming in at quarterback? Let's talk about that race to knock Georgia out. Are we even going to have divisions this year?
Well, next year I think they're going away,
yeah.
but
we got to remember the 24 schedule everybody talks about. We still got to play this year.
Right, no doubt. And it's easy to kind of blend all that we talked about with the 24 schedule into this year. But look, the media, this, Rob, the media doesn't have the greatest track record of picking the right SEC champions. So I guess they got it right last year, but it doesn't always happen. And there's been plenty of times where they've gotten it wrong. Georgia, to me, is the class of the league and thus the class of the East. I think Tennessee is in their own category as the second best team in the East. I do not see 6 wins on Florida's schedule, to be honest with you. And I know she'll look at it differently, but I've seen Vegas over-unders at 5.5 for Florida. And to me right now, I'm looking at the under for them at 5.5. Now, they got recruiting momentum. Interestingly, a lot of that out-of-state players, not in-state players. But I look, Florida's my home state. I'm not a Gators fan. I graduated from USF in Tampa, but I know how that state produces talent and how they have a high expectation for that football program. Even when they were winning, they want to win with style and trounce people. So I get that won't fly with the fan base if Billy Napier goes 5-7 in the league this year. But I do think they have some difficulties there. Yes, even if they're down, they always seem to find a way to rise up and beat better Tennessee teams. But I think this Tennessee team is a little bit different than pre-Josh Heupel Tennessee teams where they didn't have offenses that could compete. So you got a couple of breaks, and now Tennessee's not going to be able to respond. This is still going to be one of the best offenses in the country. Florida doesn't bring anything that's going to be one of the best at anything this year on that roster. So, and Josh Heupel, to me, has proven that they're going to produce, even replacing certain guys. He has one of the best offenses in the country every year. Happen every year at UCF, happen every year at Tennessee. No reason to change. And I think that will be difficult for Florida to keep up with. September 16th, hoping to be there in Gainesville and then go back to Tampa to see the family for a couple of days afterwards. But because it'll be a night game. I don't know if I'll have time for Rays. Yeah. And so, no offense to them, but it's a long haul to get there from Tampa. So I'll have such a short trip to see the family. I don't know if I'll squeeze in the Rays that weekend, but hey, maybe the Bucks, you never know. But I think Tennessee is in its own group as the second best team. And then, you look at the Kentuckys and the South Carolina after that, then Florida, Missouri, and then Vanderbilt. That's kind of the way I look at the East right now. But Florida typically, that game still scares some fans because they've just seen it before where less talented Florida teams without a good quarterback find a way to win against Tennessee in the past. Just a different challenge with the offense that Tennessee has this year.
Yeah, and Allie, you heard Vince talking about it. As an Auburn man, the Swamp it's not been real friendly to the Tigers or the Vols over the years. I think it was the 2017 Tennessee game in the Swamp, and my son was at that game with a friend of his, and James Turley's pictures on the front of one of the newspapers, that look of dejection at the end of the game. I know y'all are licking your chops to just get the season started. And Vince, Allie broke a big story yesterday on a recruit. Tell people about that. And then Vince got another question for you, and Allie's going to come on after you. But I wanted to kind of get a little Tennessee-Florida dialogue going here. But you broke a big story yesterday. Credit to you.
Oh, well, thanks. Fletcher Westphal committed yesterday. He is a very large offensive tackle. He picked Florida over Arkansas, Clemson, Georgia, and Auburn. A big piece to the puzzle for UF, I think. I think if you look at Georgia, you look at Alabama, what those teams do well and how they win, it's trenches. And he's 6'8.5", 335 pounds. Those are the kind of guys that Florida wants on their line. I think that's kind of the recipe for rebuilding what's going on. I agree with Vince about Tennessee. I think that Tennessee is probably the second best team in the East. I don't think Florida competes for the East, with Georgia this year, but I do think that Tennessee game is winnable for Florida. That doesn't mean I think they will win it, but I do. I think Florida is going to be much improved on defense this year. Offense is going to be interesting. Obviously, Florida lost Anthony Richardson, but I think you could argue that Anthony Richardson cost Florida probably as many games as he won Florida last year. So I think that there's probably going to be more stability at offense. Florida has an incredibly good running game. We're going to have a more deep offensive line than they had last season. Yeah. So I'm not saying Florida's going to beat Tennessee, but I think that will be a battle. And then put it in the swamp at night. Crazy things happen.
Yeah, Vince, I agree with her. I mean, she is. I'm gonna tell you what, she knows her football. Her husband played for the Gators. 06 national championship team?
Yes, he was on the 06 team, and my brother was on the 08 team.
The House of Rings, man.
What's really funny, I have a cousin that was on the 09 Alabama national title, and so we joke that nobody's ring is even special in our house because they all have them.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, Vince, look, at Tennessee, Florida, I mean, that rivalry, it doesn't matter. It became cemented, and you're a Florida native, and then I heard Allie talking last week on the Buddy Martin show. They're talking about doing a $400 million, job, architectural rendering, facelifting or whatever of the swamp. Vince, that's one of the toughest places. I mean, that's like Devil's Island in Tasmania to me. It's tough.
Yeah, I've certainly been to my fair share of games there to see Tennessee, Florida. And look, there's been times where it has gotten away from the opponent really fast, and it can be a wave. I think at times, though, the standard that's there can kind of add some pressure at times too when things don't go well, because there is that standard. I've seen good Florida teams just not live up to the standards for some of the fan base that they want to win. They want to win with style. They want to win with offense and route teams. And that was the mentality that Steve Spurrier established there at Florida, and they haven't been able to get that swagger back of that championship standard. So, like I said, we've seen it before where Florida just has lack of productivity at quarterback, but they still find a way against some down Tennessee teams. So it will be a challenge if it doesn't start out fast, but at least Tennessee has the ability to score and be competitive in college football, which honestly, under Jeremy Pruitt, they never did. They never had a puncher's chance because of the offense that wasn't modern in today's college football. And they're bringing it to the table. The question is the Tennessee defense, does Florida have the offense to be able to have success against Tennessee's defense? They did last year. I think to a lot of fans' surprise, Tennessee's one of the better offenses. They were rolling at the time, and that was Anthony Richardson's best game. And so that put them on even more on the map. But I think it's a different situation at quarterback for them. That's maybe my biggest concern for them, is that quarterback position. And Allie maybe seen different in practice, and maybe the coaches feel confident. A lot of people, we hear about it here locally from reports, and it happens throughout college football. Yeah, everybody's working together, everybody's getting better, everybody, the chemistry, and so everybody's best case scenario this time of year, and fans will have the expectations rise as you get closer to the start of the season. So, unfortunately, the reality is going to hit for a number of these teams. When you're making predictions on records, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. Those have to match. So It will be hard to digest for some once we get there. But the rivalry and the importance of that game, unquestioned, that a lot of times I think that brings the two teams closer together, even than maybe what Vegas or anyone else, the fans, might think.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. Look, Vince, I know you've been up since 4:30, probably. Again, you got to get you to come duck hunting with us. That's 4:30. That's when we're up to hunt. Even on a work day, we can sneak in a duck hunt and be in the office by 9:30, 10 o'clock. Thank God for cell phones and iPads and mobile devices. But Vince, tell people how they can follow you and keep up with you. And again, as always, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning. I know you do a 3-hour show before you come on with us, but it means a hell of a, not just Tennessee fans, but people who love college sports, because you take it seriously and you know what you're talking about.
Well, I appreciate that. Always great to be on with you, Rob. It's you can follow me on Twitter at Vince Sports, our website 991thesportsanimal.com. You can go to the blog section. I blog there, and then also you can get to our podcast, our morning show. This morning we had former Tennessee running back great Jay Graham, who is my color analyst for high school football. He was the guest host. Co-host for John Wilkerson this morning, and then we'll be live at Media Days all next week. We'll start things out at 5 a.m. Central Time. Those morning shows Central Time. We'll be there all 4 days covering it. We'll stay start to finish and have a lot of great shows and great content out there. Look forward to seeing you out there, Rob and Allie. If you're out there as well, look forward to seeing you there also.
Yeah, it's good. It's going to be a lot of fun, man. Hey, look, thank you so much. And we'll see you in Nashville starting Monday morning with the State of the Conference address by Commissioner Gordon. That'll be fun. So we'll do it. Have a great
looking forward to it. Thanks. See you guys.
All right. You bet. And Vince Ferrara, the sports animal up in Knoxville. And Allie, man, Alabama. See, I mean, and I remarried my oldest daughter now, Alabama grad. We're all Auburn. Wife is a Vol for life. She grew up watching every Tennessee game, or going to every Tennessee game, or listening to every Tennessee game with her dad. And he passed away almost 20 years ago. And she is as Tennessee as it gets. We were up there for the Tennessee-Alabama game, and her cousin Mark Ham was on with us yesterday. Has the biggest tailgate probably in Knoxville, right by the Torch guy, about 300 people, and had a lot of fun. Roman Harper, we know him through the show, came and hung out for about an hour. We had a brisket eating contest. I think we each ate about 2 pounds, but man, the swamp, that's a special place. And man, I've gotten to know Buddy these last 3 years. God, it's incredible. Ben Troop, Franz Beard, saw you on the show the other night, and I said, Buddy, she really knows her stuff. What I really love about you is you don't hold back on an opinion. 2 kinds of people in this world: people that'll sign off on every bad idea you come up with because they want to keep their position in the company, or go to your lake house, or go to the beach with you, or get invited to your hunting and fishing club, whatever. And there are people that'll tell you the truth. You know, that's not a good idea. I don't see how the revenue is going to come out of that. I think we should shift in this area. Let's talk about what you said. Look, I got nothing personal against Gus Malzahn, although I'm not a big fan of the sweater vest. But anyway, I like what you said about the Big Four. Look, the Gators, the Noles, and the Canes. I get it. I miss more than about any rivalry I miss that Auburn-Florida rivalry like you wouldn't believe. That was the growing up, going down to Destin and 30A. You know, it's just, that is college football to me. But let's get your thoughts about the Big Four, renovations at the Swamp, and whatever you want to talk about. And welcome to Sidelines.
Well, thanks for having me. And, you know, UCF has a really large fan base here in Florida, but they're relatively new, right? They started playing football in the 70s. They really became relevant probably the last, within the last decade is when they've been kind of on the scene a little bit. And they did in 2017 run the table during the regular season. So they crowned themselves national champions. They were, left out of that national championship situation, but they, created their own. They were named national champion by the Coley Matrix, which is one of the polls that the BCS calculated when they came up with their formula. So that is why they claim that they're a national champion. It is in the NCAA record books that the Coley Matrix names them the national champion. The problem that I have with that is that 2016, so just the year before, Coley Matrix names Alabama the national title. Only problem there, Clemson and Alabama actually played in the national title, and Clemson won. Same thing, 2012, Coley Matrix names Notre Dame the national champion. Well, Alabama waxed the floor with Notre Dame in the national championship game. So I just think to pick like an obscure poll who is not actually that accurate is, a reason to name yourself national champion. And if you look at Florida State, and Miami, there's like 11 unclaimed national titles between those three schools. So the gap between the big three and UCF would be even wider if we all decided to claim these random national championships. And I just think saying, hey, we're here, we're the big four, discounts the history of the other three programs. I don't think it doesn't mean that UCF can't one day join them. They very well may. And now that they're in the Big 12, they're going to have so much more television revenue. They're going to have so much more exposure. They may be there, but they're not there yet. And I just think, one, it's putting a target on your back. So I don't know if that's something that UCF, really fully thought through. But I just think it's insulting to the other three schools who have been doing this for 100 years at a really high level, have multiple national titles, multiple Heisman trophies, All-Americans, tons more draft picks. It's just not the same.
Well, you go back to Florida, 1933 to 1991. I mean, what is that? 58 years. Now they were the SEC champions in 1984. Damn it, they had to vacate it, but that team, you could say, was the best team in the country that year. I mean, Lomas Browne, they had some stout people on that football team. They were they mowed down everybody. Then 1990, Steve Spurrier's first year. They should have been SEC champions that year. Inexcusable that they didn't get it. But it started 1983. Hell, Auburn, you could say, should Auburn claim the 1983? They're number 3, Texas number 2, Nebraska number 1, Miami's 5th. They did a poll of 32 Knight Ridder sports writers of the 61 in the poll. They said if Miami at 5 beats 1 Nebraska, they'll leapfrog them to number 1. New York Times claimed Auburn the national champion. I still have the banner from my college days. But Golf Digest in 2004. But I see where you're going. Look, the Holgate system. It's some guy that lived in the basement at his mom's house, I think, in 1941, declared Alabama national champion. Now, look, they've got plenty they don't claim, but they were 9-2 in the SEC that year and lost to Vandy and Mississippi State. Mississippi State won their only SEC title in 1941, a week before Pearl Harbor. I get where you're coming from, and you're right. Florida, I've always thought of Florida as a great program because you have to play them every year. I mean, I still remember Wes Chandler and Chris Collinsworth out of Titusville, Astronaut High School, Wilbur Marshall,
my dad
Titusville, Astronaut High School. Your dad was on that team?
He was, and actually
Wilbur Marshall.
With Wilbur Marshall, yes, and that Titusville Astronaut team. My dad played for Jesuit in Tampa, and the two of those schools played in the state championship prior to all of them going to Florida.
Wow,
a little high school football fact.
That is hellish. Because you think about, man, when think about in 1979, and I've said this to Buddy. And we were very privileged to have Ward Pell, the widow of the late coach Charlie Pell, on the show last year. One of the best segments we've ever had. Talk about a woman, amazing. And Charlie Pell, I said something to friends and Buddy, said, as much as Spurrier did, Charlie Pell came there from Clemson in 1979. They went 0-10-1 that first year. The next year, the Gators went 8-4. And they won the Tangerine Bowl against Maryland, I think 23-22, something like that, when they called it the Tangerine Bowl. But it now citrus because there's so much citrus going on. I remember that was the best turnaround in college football history up to that time. Then he goes and recruits Wayne Peace out of Winter Haven, Florida. They have the great backfield. You have Lorenzo Hampton out of Miami, Florida, John L. Williams, Palatka, Florida, over on the Johns River, Neil Anderson out of Gracie, Florida. They had, again, Lomas Browne on the offensive line, Wilbur Marshall, the 1983, one of the best linebackers ever in college football. I think it started there. Then they got that probation. And then you had Wilford Brimley or Galen Hall take over as interim coach, Gary Darnell. And then they bring back this guy from Duke who had won the ACC at Duke, this guy. I mean, I still remember where I was September of 88 when I think Duke beat Tennessee in Knoxville that year. And we were going, who is the coach there? It's that guy. What's his name? Steve Spurrier. I mean, what a but they got it going with Pell.
Yeah, they did. And you remember where you were where Spurrier was hired. I remember where I was when Spurrier resigned. And I can remember my dad telling me, okay, well, the best case scenario is for him to never retire, which obviously wasn't going to happen. He's like, the second best time is for him to retire when Florida is doing so well and when it can ruin the publicity for Miami winning a national title. And that's, core memory for me. And I remember crying because I was the, 12-year-old girl that was just so emotionally invested in Florida football at the time. But you're right. It really did start with Charlie Pell, and, Steve Spurrier launched Florida into a different kind of stratosphere. And lately we always talk about Florida defense probably for the last 2 decades, but honestly, 2 different times Florida really revolutionized the SEC, but on offense. Steve Spurrier did it when he brought in the fun and gun. Then Urban Meyer did it when he brought the spread. And so Florida has led offensively, the last couple of decades in this conference, even though defense is really what you think of when you think of those gritty Florida teams. But so I'm interested to see what Napier can do, with this. Will he follow in the same footsteps as Urban Meyer and Steve Spurrier, or will he go the wayside of, Muschamp and McElwain and things like that? I like what he's building at Florida. Something that Vince had talked about was that 5.5 Vegas odds are about 5.5 on the season. I think that Florida can manage 7 to 8 wins, depending on, close games, whether you win those coin flips or not.
Exactly.
The thing that concerns me is that I hope Gator fans are willing to be patient enough, right? I think 7 to 8 wins is an improvement over last year, both obviously record-wise, but because when you look at how the schedule shakes out as well, Florida has a very difficult schedule this year. So then going into year 3, are people willing to be patient? Because Florida has a gauntlet the next year. 2024 is the toughest schedule, honestly, that I've ever seen in college football, probably. It's going to be so tough. So even if there is massive improvement, I don't know that the record is going to show that. So I'm hoping at the very least we need the administration to be patient because they're the ones that make the decisions here. But fans, Florida fans are just a different breed. So are they going to be willing to let him get to year 4 knowing, okay, this thing is building in the right direction as long as recruiting continues on? Florida has the number 3 recruiting class in the country. If they hold on to those recruits for signing day, that's huge. But then they're going to have to go ahead and do it again in 2025 for it to matter, right? Because you have to stack those classes on top of each other. But I do think it's headed in the right direction. I'm just really hopeful and that everyone is willing to be patient enough to see this whole process through, because at some point you've got to stop firing a coach every 2.5 to 3.5 years. Yeah,
it won't work. And you talk about, Billy Napier. I've watched him at Clemson, watched him at Alabama, watched him at Louisiana. And, I was wanting Auburn to hire him over Brian Harsin. And they don't listen to me, but the guy's a great recruiter.
Yeah.
Father coached football in a wheelchair. This guy's motivated. He's organized. He gets it. He can relate to people. Remember, and I know past examples, they do matter. They were ready to run Dabo out in his early years at Clemson. He took over for Tommy Bowden midway through the 2008 season. They weren't lighting the world on fire. What changed really was when in 2011, he brought in Chad Morris and they opened up the offense, and Brent Venables coached the defense. Brent Venables now at Oklahoma, people think he got a football lobotomy because he has a bad first year. Well, Lincoln Riley took the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback away and 21 other guys on that team, just stole the guts out of that team. Yeah. And then look at Oklahoma. They lost 4 of their last 5 games, all by 3 points. If you think Oklahoma's going away, same thing with Florida. Look at the DNA. I'm big into hunting dogs, and I look at the pedigree 3 deep, and it matters. History, tradition, heroes. It matters. 1989 to 2009. Name me the winningest team in college football. They won 3 national championships, 8 conference championships. Florida Gators.
Yeah.
And then, then,
Well, and
yeah, it changes.
it does. And when you talk about giving coaches, long enough time, college football is a what have you done for me lately, environment right now. But look at Michigan. Had they fired Harbaugh right at the beginning, he's headed in the right direction. And, Florida fans will hate this, but even Florida State, Mike Norvell had 2 terrible seasons.
Yes.
Had they not been patient with him, they wouldn't have gotten their 10-win season that they got in year 3. And so I do think there is something to be said for being patient, even though it's not the environment that we are in the moment we're in college football. But at some point, when you continually fire these coaches, your job becomes less valuable. And I think, Florida is one of the top jobs in college football.
Yes.
But if a guy knows I'm inheriting a roster that doesn't fit into the system that I want to run, but I only have 2 to 3 years to completely overhaul or I'm out, it becomes less desirable. So I do think there's something to be said for giving Napier a shot. You wanted a rebuild. You wanted something completely different than what you had with Dan Mullen. And honestly, firing Mullen, in my opinion, was kind of punting on 3rd down. It might work out really well for you, but this is a guy who took you to a New Year's 6 the 2 previous seasons before having a bad one. So it's a gamble to go a different direction. So if you're going to take that risk, then take the time to let that risk fully play out before you decide to move on from it. And I do think Napier's a great CEO. I do think Florida's headed in the right direction. I do think the locker room needed a total rebuild. So it's going to take some time. So, Florida fans are not patient. So they're going to have to learn to be if this is going to be successful.
Yeah, and I agree with what you just said. Once your mind expands from its original size and goes way up here, meaning you win conference and national championships, it never goes back. I hear people criticize Alabama fans or, Florida fans or Tennessee or Auburn or LSU or Georgia. When you win like that, I mean, that's kind of like being invited to eat, at the best steakhouse in town, the best halibut, the best group or whatever. Then all of a sudden you got to go to Captain D's, and it's just, I think that's fish, but anyway, I digress. But I think people need to really take that into consideration about patience and the time it takes to build, like a young lawyer building a practice, a young doctor building a practice. I had a friend in the military, a colonel, tell me one time, battalion commander, he said, it takes at a minimum 18 to 24 months to take a military unit and get them together to where they can be effective in combat. You go 3 months or 6 months in, you're really pushing it. And I think about my brother-in-law played football at Virginia Tech. I was up there in 1987 when they hired Frank Beamer. He laid out a plan. It took him a while.
Yeah.
It took John Thompson a long time to get Georgetown basketball going. Look at Mike Krzyzewski. They wanted to run him off real quick. Yeah, we're going to take a break if you can stay with us. Great stuff with Allie Peak Wilbur. I absolutely love this. Take a quick break on Sidelines. We're going to be right back with more college football from the Deep South. This is awesome. Be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with Allie Peak Wilbur down. Are you in Gainesville, Ocala? Because, you say Gainesville to Buddy. He goes, I'm in Ocala.
I'm in Tampa, actually.
Okay. Home events, yeah. So you a big Rays fan?
I am. I'm a Rays fan. We're Bucks fans. I'm Tampa born and raised, so we are big fans of the hometown teams.
I was down in Atlanta last week, checking on the granddaughter, and we ended up staying down there for about 5 or 6 nights. And the Braves and the Rays played. That looks like the two best teams in baseball. And I talked to a big Astros fan yesterday. They won 50 something games, but they'll be there. But that Tampa market, just describe to people. Franz Beer talked about it yesterday on the show. 750,000 people right there in Polk County. Then you've got Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater. How many people are in that metro area? Was that where you worked in TV on as a sports anchor?
I actually worked in Orlando.
Okay.
Well, I take that back. I worked in I did high school sports in Tampa in high school and college for Spectrum, which at that point was Time Warner and Bright House. But then when I covered Florida, it was for an Orlando affiliate, CBS affiliate. So I didn't cover college for Tampa, but it's a very big market, big area, lots of good sports.
Yeah, well, yeah. And you think about Tampa, 2 Super Bowl championships. And I remember the early years when John McKay was the coach, because they had one of my Auburn favorites, Neil O'Donoghue, was the field goal kicker there. And I think they made the playoffs. He was actually from Dublin, Ireland. Auburn had found him at St. Bernard's Abbey in Coleman, Alabama. Chuck Jordan, football coach at the time, said, "Why don't you come down here and walk on at Auburn?" So he did it. And he was one of the original guys there at Tampa. But Allie, let's switch back now. You've got such a great grasp of history. Your husband played for the Gators. Your brother played for the Gators. Your dad played for the Gators. Got a cousin that played on the Alabama 2009 national championship game. And I appreciate you staying on here a little bit longer. My next guest is running a few minutes behind. He's picking up a grandson today. Tighter Insiders, Rodney Orr, just first-class guy. He is just one of the best. But I'm going to tell you, I can talk college football 24/7. It never gets boring. You get it about the Gators. I don't think the Gator fans, Shane Matthews got kind of mad last year. I remember hearing him say, the Gator fans, but my wife says when she goes to Auburn games, she goes, "Oh my God, y'all get mad when the other team gets the ball." I mean, we go back over to the Sigma Newhouse after a game, win or lose. It could be 56-3 in the discussion. You know what it is? How did we give up that field goal?
Right. Right.
So growing up with a dad who played college football, a husband, a brother, you know what that's like to be that close to it. And also to watch your brother in the stands. And you know what? I hate it. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. These people that rush to get to the game, they sit there with their arms folded and a scowl on their face when something goes wrong, and they're leaving at the end of the third quarter. Why go? I believe if you expect the team to play a full 60, by God, you stay a full 60. And I don't leave till the team has knelt at midfield for the post-game prayer. And I love it when players from both teams interact, that sportsmanship, because let's face it, they all know each other. The great ones run in the same flocks, don't they?
Oh, for sure. And, you and I talked about this on the phone yesterday. My kids know we don't leave until we've sung the alma mater. Like that is, but part of that is respect for what these guys are doing on the field. They're people, right?
Yep.
We know the hours that they have put in. We know the years that they have put in. And it does bother me from a fan perspective when the person next to you thinks that they want this win more than the people on the field want this win. And that's just never the case. And we hear that a lot with coaches when a coach is about to get fired or does get fired. Oh, he quit, or, oh, he didn't really want to win, or he didn't care. And that always rubs me the wrong way. A coach may not be successful.
Yeah.
It may be time for him to move on to a different program. Sure. But to think that the casual fan wanted to win or cared about the outcome more than the person who was in charge of the program is just crazy to me. And, it was a really cool experience to watch my brother, to watch my husband. My husband and I were dating during that time. And I have this, core memory of my brother under the swamp after they won the 2008 national title. The team had come back from the Orange Bowl and they were doing like a trophy ceremony at Florida Field. And so then when we're going to leave the swamp, and there were so many fans who had somehow made their way under the stadium. And he and every other player under there was just swamped by people wanting autographs. And my brother was a freshman, and he had like these big eyes and was very like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And I remember saying to him, like, sign every one of them, take it in, because at some point this is going to stop. Yeah. And I have a picture of that moment, but it's seared in my brain because it does. You get these few years and you soak this in, and it's so cool. And then Peter Pan grows up and you go on and you become a financial advisor, you become a mortgage broker, whatever. And it was such a cool, my husband's a financial advisor too, which I thought that was so funny when you said that. Like, it's just, Peter Pan has to grow up at some point. And it was really neat to be able to watch that specific moment in time for each one of them and their highs and lows to that. It's super cool to win a national championship and to watch that. I also watched, my husband get death threats when he dropped a punt against Auburn during that same season. And so to see the highs and lows of it does give you perspective for when you have seasons like Florida had last year or things like that. College football, as exciting as it is, and as much as we could talk it all day long and love it, it's not life or death. And these are real people that are out there. And I do think it's important to keep that perspective when you're watching these games on Saturday.
Yeah. And, that 2008 Florida National Championship team, Oklahoma's offense in the 5 games prior to that averaged almost 60 points a game.
Yep.
Gators lock them down 24-14 in the Fiesta Bowl out in Arizona. We watched that. Orange Bowl. Okay. I was thinking fit. No, I remember watching that game. The dominance, that Gator team. So my wife's favorite coach, now she's a Vol, but her favorite coach out there now is Urban Meyer. She loves him. She goes, why don't they just back up the truck? Buddy knows him. Franz knows him. Ben, y'all know him. I don't know him, but I'm a big fan of his. Look, we all do stupid stuff. When you live your life under a microscope, you have no wiggle room. Your brother played for him. Your husband played for him. I think his all-time record is 187 wins and 28 losses. That's pretty good. And I don't know if he'll ever coach again. What's he like when you've been around him? Have you ever interviewed him or been on the show with him before? But I hope he doesn't go away. Look, you can sit there and say, well, look what he did. You know what? The great poet John Keats said, you can bring back any man from the dead and carve up his body and find a good side and a bad side. We all got him, but the guy does a lot of things right. But what's he like?
So I have actually never interviewed Urban, but I know Urban from when he coached Eric and he coached Scott. And, my husband had Zook for 2 years and then he had Urban Meyer for 2 years.
Okay.
And my husband did not love Zook as a coach necessarily, but I remember how upset he was when Zook was fired because, it's still your coach, even if you don't necessarily that's your coach. And I remember him thinking that he was not going to like Urban when Urban was hired. And it had nothing to do with Urban. It had to do with the fact that he was upset about the way that Zook had been let go. And Urban called a meeting at the stadium, and he locked the doors. So if you were late, you weren't getting into the meeting. And one of the first things that he said to them was, I know that you didn't choose me, but I need you to know that I chose you. I could have gone other places. You guys are the people that I believed in. This is the program that I wanted to be at because of the people that are here. And Eric left that meeting ready to run through a wall for Urban Meyer. And, and he was incredibly skeptical going into it. And that has always stuck with me because he was immediately able to turn that locker room around. And he then treated those players that you got out exactly what you put in to that program. There were no stars and walk-ons. He rewarded effort, not status on the team. And that was something that, was maybe a little bit different than Ron Zook did it. And it was great. My husband's a punter. So of course, special teams guy who's normally, they're usually the last men to eat kind of thing. For it to be effort-based entirely was awesome for him and was so motivating for him. And, I think, and Urban's a psychology major, and he really uses that in his coaching. Leading into that 2006 national title game, nobody thought Florida had a chance. No. And everybody essentially said that in print for 6 weeks, which Urban wallpapered the entire football facility with, ad nauseum. Some of the articles he hung up may not have even been real. Who knows? He had that team so ready to play. Eric's roommate, his senior year of college, was Jarvis Moss, who was the reason Florida won the South Carolina game earlier that year and had a really big game in the national title as well. And I can remember him afterwards being like, I think we played 7 games that were harder than this one this season. They were so ready to go. Ohio State, I think, was so overhyped that
Oh,
season.
yeah.
It was not what we, they were not as tough as we thought they were going to be when we actually got them on the field. I think that's the first time that there was really wow, the SEC is that much harder of a conference, that our records maybe don't look as good, but our on the field play against people from other conferences definitely, stands on its own. It was such a cool time to be in school. Urban really just turned that whole thing around. But I think for Urban, which I think this is the case probably for any major coach, I don't think getting to the top of the mountain is really the hardest thing to do in coaching. I think it's staying at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of what led to Urban's decline at Florida and maybe at Ohio State as well, is that it's easy to take this team of misfits who haven't won anything and motivate them and, shape them and coach them well. I say it's easy if you're a great coach and get them to the top. I think it is much harder to then maintain the egos of those players, maintain the intensity, because there is this, well, we're the best. We already proved we're the best. We're not like, what do you mean I have to continue to work this hard? Saban is one of the only people, Dabo probably as well, but there's just not that many coaches who have been able to maintain that level of intensity at the top and keep these wins happening. And I think that was Urban's struggle at Florida. I think that was his downfall. I think player egos kind of got out of hand, and I think it became hard. When you've got these young, eager guys that haven't won anything, it's easy to keep those egos in check. When you win and you're, on top of the college football world, I think that becomes a lot harder.
Yeah. It does. And everybody wants to attack you. We love to build people up in America. I think more than that, people love, not me, but they love to tear them down. Sure. And they forget that, again, as a kid, my parents would always take us outside the locker room. As a kid, you want an autograph, a chin strap, a wristband, or whatever. Yep. And as I got older, I noticed, man, they've got moms and dads and girlfriends, and really these kids, whether they come from a high school in a big city, but it really shows up if you're from Eufaula, Alabama, or you're from Live Oak, Florida, or you're from Graceville, in Destin, whatever. It's not just your family waiting for you. It's your high school coach, your guidance counselor, your history professor, maybe a minister, a priest, just people you bring with you. So, and there are people that will sign from a high school, and especially in a small town. Doesn't matter where they go, all of a sudden they make a lot of fans of that school because so many people are riding with them. And you talk about, your brother and your dad, your husband, all playing for the Gators. I mean, you take it personally, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. And I take it personally that I want this program to succeed. Yeah. I also feel personally protective of the coaches and the players that Florida has because of the reasons we talked about. They are people. They work incredibly hard. They want the best for this program. I'm also, then skeptical of players who just, want to be at the school for 3 years and then use it as a path to the NFL and never want to come back. I do think that to build a championship program, it takes a balance of those stud athletes who are going to go in the first round and are incredible, but probably are never going to pour into their university once they leave it. And then also guys who are maybe your second, third, fourth free agent type of players who are going to continue to bring their kids back to the University of Florida their whole lives. And to build a championship program, you do have to have a good mix of those. It can't just be all 5-star guys who pick the University of Florida because it's the quickest path to the NFL and they're never going to look back. Maybe you win one, but you don't continually win.
I agree with you. I mean, you want them to love the laundry. A couple more questions before we go. I know we've gone long, and Rodney Orr's running behind, but I just got to ask you this. There are so many people out there trying to push this negative narrative, and I go into this with everybody every day about college football, NIL and the portal. Oh, we've ruined the game. I don't agree with that. I think you look at season ticket sales. They broke records this year at Auburn and Tennessee. They're less than 2 years into a 6-year plan in Knoxville. They're selling them all. Florida is about to invest $400 million into the football stadium. it's awful easy to get caught up in all that negativity. But you've got 4 kids. I got 4. Mine love it. They go to the games. They can't wait to be there. And all this stuff about, well, they'll just watch it on TV. Well, what they're doing now is they're watching it on the tailgate tent, and there's 50,000 people outside the stadium and 90 or 100 inside. I think our best days are yet to come, don't you?
I do. And, NIL is kind of the Wild West right now, but I do feel like it's going to level out. And there's so many good things that have come out of NIL. Like, I actually was reading a story earlier. Leanne Wong, she is a gymnast for UF. She also was on our Olympic team, silver medalist. She has sold 10,000 hair bows. She makes them herself. Her mom helps her. NIL has allowed her to do that. She gives a lot of the money back to charity. There's cool stories like that. Athletes that have been able to really help their families or their communities with the opportunities that NIL provides. And I think that that's amazing. I think there's so much good. And another maybe unintended consequence is that fans feel like they know the person behind the helmet much more with NIL. There's opportunities for interviews, for meet and greets, for products, for different things. And I do think that maybe gives them a little bit more grace on Saturdays in the fans' eyes, because they see these guys as actual people. But, college football, there's absolutely nothing like it. And I do think its best days are ahead of us. I'm interested to see what happens with the playoff. I can't wait to see what happens when there's no conferences in the SEC in a year. Yeah. We're about to have 12 weeks of incredible football. There's not going to be a week where it's like, oh, well, I'll just listen on the radio and go do, XYZ because we're only playing the Sisters of the Blind and it doesn't really matter. That's all going away. We are going to have incredible football 12 weeks out of the year before we even get into bowl season. And that is exciting. So you're right. The best days are ahead of us.
Yeah. And one other thing, Orville Henry was a great sports writer in Arkansas for decades. And when it was announced that Arkansas was coming into the SEC, his son, Clay Henry, also a hell of a writer, he asked him at the press conference, someone told me this story that covers the Hogs. He said, Dad, what does this mean? He goes, son, it means we play Texas every week, coming into the SEC. Now we cover a lot with our Texas guys, Ken Capps and Bo Carter, Billy Shershot, Oklahoma with Tyler McComas. And we've been getting ahead of it, as best we can. But I've been to Austin. I've been to Oklahoma. I don't think most of them don't understand. These people are obsessed with it. And it, just the thought of Florida, Texas. That's like the Titanic versus the Lusitania, but
I can't wait. I am going to go to that game. I went to the Florida Texas A&M game, which was Texas A&M's first game in the SEC. And it was wild. First of all, Aggie fans walked around saying, welcome to Aggieville. Hey, how do we compare to the other schools in the SEC? I must have been asked that 100 times. And I kept saying, have you been to LSU? Have you been to Athens? Have you been to Alabama? And then at the end of the game, I don't know if they still do this because I haven't been back, but when the game ended, Texas A&M allowed all of the fans to funnel onto the field together. And I remember looking at my dad saying, they're going to host LSU here one time, and then that's never going to happen again. Because it's just a different beast. Yes. And I'm interested. Texas and Oklahoma are titans in college football, but I also think they haven't seen anything like the SEC week in and week out. So I can't wait to see how they fare. And it was already the toughest conference. And so it got that much better. And I'm hoping that when the playoff committee comes around, that they're really taking into account not just wins and losses, but what that schedule looks like week in and week out, because there isn't nothing that compares to what those SEC schedules are going to be.
Well, it's like we said yesterday, I really think a 9-3 or 10-2 SEC team, when we get rid of the divisional format, will be going to the college football playoffs. You want to be a great runner, do a lot of hill repeats. I was watching some video. Brad Lester, former Auburn running back out of Lilburn, Georgia, Parkview High School, hell of a running back for Tommy Tuberville back in 05 and 06. He's training Jarquez Hunter. I call him Cowboys, from Philadelphia, Mississippi. Loves riding horses. Great running back. He was running up hills, doing zigzag drills and just to the bottom of the hill on some levee. It looked like by a dam. And I tweeted out, I said, Walter Payton, the great running back, used to do that at Sardis Dam and Grenada and Enid, some of these reservoirs. He'd get to the bottom of the hill and train. But there's so many great stories that make college football great, but man, you get it, and got to get you back on here again soon. A lot of great ones. You, Franz, Buddy, Ben Troop, and I learned so much from every guest we have on here. And like I say, probably a third of our audience are women listeners. I know both of mine, Hallie and Mallory, they love college football. They're listening right now in Richmond and in Atlanta. My boys, Wilson and Max, love it. My mother, we used to have to cage her. She got kicked out of a game one time for yelling at the other team at the Auburn Ole Miss game in 1990. If she's listening, she had to go down into the timeout, but it's just, I love you. Not only are you enthusiastic, but you're cerebral, you get it. And you can take all that complex minutia and put it in the vernacular really well. And I did TV for a couple of years. It was a lot of fun, a lot of 18-hour days for 4.5 minutes or a minute and a half package or whatever like that. And if there's a storm or something like that, forget about it. Yep. It doesn't happen. But if the local sports TV writers, anchors, people that cover the schools, you can look from 50,000 feet in space with a satellite. But until you get on the ground and get that local reporter, and you're in Tampa, but what is that, an hour and a half from Gainesville, Alachua County? I've been there many times. But we got to get you back on. Tell people how they can follow you and your message to people. I know you love college football, your girls, your husband, and all, you love it, but how they follow you, and we'll look forward to having you on again soon.
Well, on Twitter, you can follow me at Allie, which is ALI_Peak, PEEK. And then on YouTube, A Peek Inside Florida Gator Football.
I love it. So you've got your own website. Okay. So content put up there regularly.
Yep.
All right. We'll do it, man. Have a great one. I really appreciate you staying on extra time with us today. Learned a lot. And man, 53 days away from the start of the college football season. Okay. All right. We'll do it again soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Appreciate it. All right. We're going to head now to Tuscaloosa. Rodney Orr, Tider Insider, checking in with us right now. Rodney, I know you got absolutely you need about 30 hours a day, 8 days a week to do all that you need to do. And then tonight at 6:30, you and Gary Harris will be on YouTube, Tider Insider TV. Folks, it's a hell of a show. You love Alabama, or you just love college football and you want to learn about everything going on in sports at Alabama, you need to watch Tider Insider with Rodney Orr. And Tider Insider is only $48 a year for the best information. What is this, year 27, Rodney?
This is actually year 27 of our website, which you mentioned there. The $48 is for the website. And then, of course, our TV shows, you also noted, 6:30 tonight, live, WVUA. It airs throughout a good part of the state of Alabama every Tuesday night and has been going now. We're entering our 24th year of Tider Insider TV with Gary Harris every Tuesday night, year-round. We rarely take a break, Rob.
Well, look, you know what? People say, what do you do on these shows when football season's over? I said, well, obviously we got basketball, we got baseball, track, swimming, golf, softball, gymnastics. And we're going to have Dana Duckworth on the show here on the 28th of July, Waller and Susan. Of course, this is the May Veterinary Clinic, Tider Insider Report, brought to you by May Veterinary Clinic in Tuscaloosa and Northport since 1964 when Dr. Wayne May started it. Guy May and Dr. Waller May, both keeping it pet care, dogs, cats, and dog and daycare facility. May Veterinary Clinic, they call it Camp May, that has its own pool and has connecting cat condos. Proud to have them as a sponsor. No matter where you live, it's never too far to go to Tuscaloosa and Northport. Check them out on our website, mayveterinaryclinic.com. But Rodney, there's never a dull moment. And football magazines are coming out. We got media days starting next Monday up in Nashville. You know what might be more fun? As much as we love college football season, the build up to college football season might be better.
Yeah, it certainly is. No, I was thinking because you were talking about the preseason magazines, and again, it's those things used to be. I remember I'm going back to the 70s, early 70s, Rob, on that. Those preseason magazines, they used to be a big deal because you didn't have the access that you had now.
Yeah.
And man, those things when early June hit, all those magazines hit the racks. I mean, if you were a college football fan, it was hog heaven. But now you've got so much at your fingertips and at your disposal with the internet and all of these things. It's all year round now and day to day, 24 hours a day. But I mean, the excitement's starting to build with the SEC. Obviously, SEC Media Day's coming up. I think that's really, to me, that's the unofficial kickoff. That's when everything gets going. It's kind of the pregame show, so to speak. And then you've got August camp that starts in the first week of August, and all of a sudden, after 29 practices, you're into your opening game. So, man, it's a month from now, we're already 2 weeks into the season. So
Yeah.
It's I say a month from now. What is this? 2 months from now, I should say.
53
we're
days
already
from the first game.
Yeah. 2 months from now, we're 2 weeks into the season. So anyway, it's we're getting there fast.
Yeah, we are. And a lot of questions about Alabama. We've got a lot of listeners and viewers who subscribe to our YouTube channel, and everybody's wanting to know the quarterback. I mean, Nick Saban doesn't even know. You don't know, but you got some guys that know what they're doing. Roman Harper said it best a couple of months on the show. He said, in Saban, we trust. They've worked it out every year. Break it down again for people maybe who don't know. What are the big differences with Tyler Buckner, Jalen Milroe, and Ty Simpson as you see it?
I think that, obviously Milroe is, he's a Lamar Jackson type athlete. I mean, don't laugh out there. I'm telling you, this guy's an incredible athlete. I mean, he's a legitimate 4.4, maybe even a sub 4.4 on a good day. He could probably pop the upper 4.3s. And I'm talking about a guy that's 6'2.5", probably 220 pounds. He may have lost a little bit of weight. But what he lost, I don't know how he lost. I mean, the guy's rock solid. I mean, he's an incredible athlete. He's incredibly gifted. He has a strong arm. I think the real thing with Jalen Milroe's this, and I've seen a lot of kids that are extremely gifted athletically that kind of have had this. When they come up, everyone relies on their athletic gifts, and coaches just say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to run we're just going to run this guy on a quarterback sweep or quarterback power or quarterback draw, whatever it is. I mean, this guy, when we have him throw, we're just going to tell him, hey, if that first guy's not there, you take off, because you're looking to win games, and that's what they do a lot of these, sometimes in high school. So I think really to get to the point here is that Milroe got here and he was really raw as a passer. I think he's come a long way, but I still think, Milroe's got a ways to go to continue to develop. I think Ty Simpson, on the other hand, Ty has all the tools, man, to be a quarterback. He's athletic enough. He moves around well. He's got a lot of escapability. He can run, fairly well. He's got a strong arm. He can see it all. I mean, he's got all the tools. It's just a matter of, Rob, you have to mature sometimes. And I don't mean as a person necessarily as much as I'm talking about as a player. Mac Jones, it took him a while. Of course, now he had some good guys in front of him, but, it took him a while to get to that point.
Yeah.
And I think Ty has all the tools. As far as Tyler Buckner goes, I think Tyler Buckner is a guy that a lot of people that I listen to, and I'm just not judging, but I'm listening to them. And they're saying things like Tyler Buckner, he was a high quality quarterback recruit. And there was a reason for that. He was a top-notch prospect coming out of California. Brian Kelly loved him. Tommy Reese loved him. He had an injury early in his high school career. Then his senior year was wiped out due to COVID. So he missed some of his high school career after accounting for 81 touchdowns as a junior. Got to Notre Dame, had some injuries, flashed sometimes. Last year he had some injuries, obviously, that sidelined him, his shoulder injury for the most part. Won the MVP in the Gator Bowl, had some ups and downs in that game. So, in short, I think he's a guy that has a tremendous amount of athletic ability, can move around, can make all the throws. He just needs some development. And right now, if you ask me to guess, because I know it's probably what you wonder, or maybe some of your listeners are wondering.
Yeah.
I would give Tyler Buckner, if you could say give somebody an edge, and I don't think it's just, I would say Tyler Buckner might be the guy to watch headed into this August camp. But who knows? It's like you said, he's got to go win the job.
Yeah. Well, I think Gary Harris said on the show that when Alabama was getting ready for the game against San Diego State, he had talked to one of the sports anchors out in San Diego, and that guy said Tyler Buckner is one of the best high school players he'd ever seen. Goes to Notre Dame. And I don't know if he'd have beaten Sam Hartman out or not. I don't know. Nobody knows. But Sam Hartman decides he's going to transfer from Wake Forest over to Notre Dame. He's there. But if Brian Kelly liked him, Brian Kelly, pretty damn good coach. Nick Saban would not have signed him if they didn't see something special in him. Again, when I coach my first college football game, it'll be me coaching my first college football game. But I like what your takedown, because I've watched Jalen Milroe, kid out of Texas, superb speed. I mean, that guy is such a great athlete. If he's not your quarterback, he's big. I mean, God, could he be a safety? Could he be a line? I mean, you're looking at athletes now, Rodney, that used to play other positions that are big guys that are playing quarterback. That's a sign of the changes in college football. But let's switch gears now. Let's move over to defense. Last year, Dallas Turner and Will Anderson were regarded as the best two edge rushers on any team in college football. But Alabama recruits well every year. Will Anderson's number 3 pick in the draft. He's gone on, or 4th pick, to make a great career and great money there. But a lot of guys are back. Let's talk about that front 7 on the Alabama defense that Kevin Steele will be commanding.
Well, I mean, I counted 8 outside linebackers that are 5-star players coming out of high school. 8. And I'm talking about by one service or another.
Yeah.
Whether it was 247 or Rivals or ESPN or whatever, one of those services had these guys 5-star rated players. And I mean, so we could go down the list, and you mentioned Will's gone, but you got Dallas Turner, you got Chris Braswell, you got Quandarius Robinson, you've got Keanu Coote, you've got other guys, Jeremiah Alexander, Johans Pierre, you got Keon Keeley coming in. And I'm forgetting somebody off the top of my head. I think I rattled 7 names right there.
Yeah.
All those guys were 5-star type players coming out of high school. So there's a lot to work with at outside line. If you're the outside linebackers coach, you don't have a lot of excuses, Rob. I'm just going to tell you.
No, you don't.
You better have high quality play out there. I would say on the defensive line, I think they've got players. I mean, losing Burrows hurts, I think, especially an interior pass rusher, because I think he could have been really good. But you got Tim Smith, and you've got obviously Jaheim Otis. A lot of people think he's a potential superstar. I think Tim Smith's a potential star. I don't have any doubt about that. Justin Aboybe. You got some other young players. James Smith is a true freshman to really watch out for. You got some younger players, Damon Payne. Tim Keenan's an interior player that I think, is a good run stopper. Maybe would be a situational player. And you've got some other guys. We could go down the list, Michael Goodwine, et cetera. And I think the real thing there, and I'm just being fair about this. Alabama fans have talked about it. There's been defensive line coaches in the NFL talked about it, is the defensive line development at Alabama over the last few years. And it's the players are there. I do think that that will be enhanced with Kevin Steele, because I think that he's a veteran. I think he's a guy that's going to bring some fire. Now, he's not coaching the defensive line. He's a defense coordinator, but I think it's going to help all the guys on the defensive staff to have Steele present, if that makes sense. So I'm not blaming Freddie Roach. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying, I think now with Kevin Steele there, it's going to be helpful to everybody. I think they have players up front. It's time for these guys to kind of step up and start fulfilling their potential.
Yeah, and we're about out of time, unfortunately, but we'll be back on with you next week. But I look at what Kevin Steele did in the 5 years he was at Auburn. He had Derek Browne out of Beaufort, Georgia, Sugar Hill. That was a centerpiece. Marlon Davidson. But man, they blew some people up, and they had a top 15, top 20 defense minimum every year he was there. And he's got great talent. 8 5-star linebackers. Wow. If you are the linebacker coach at Alabama, I'll truly say you've been born on home plate and you did hit a grand slam. just don't screw it up. But Rodney, look, thank you so much as always for taking time to join us here on the May Veterinary Clinic Tighter Insider Report. And Rodney, tell people how they can follow you, keep up with you. And let me just close by saying, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Don't ever miss an opportunity to thank people who help you along the way, and go out and find excuses to win and help other people. And Rodney, tag out, and we'll see y'all tomorrow.
TighterInsider.com. It's only $48 a year, and you can get instant access with your credit card, or there is an address there to send a check. Gives y'all our premium stuff, but also our All Sports Forum, Rob. It's our community of Alabama fans. A lot of discussion. Nothing slips by these people on TighterInsider.com. A lot of chatter right there about different things. That Northwestern job, Tommy Reese has been linked to that job already. They're talking about it on TighterInsider.com right now. So that's the kind of things we have on TighterInsider.com.
Well, great stuff. And we'll be watching the show tonight, 6:30 p.m. Tighter Insider TV on YouTube. Hey, thanks everybody for watching, for listening. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, we're out of here. See you tomorrow.